The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, good evening. Welcome to today's sharing. Okay, good. So we'll get started in a minute, right? So we'll get started at 9. So welcome. For those of you who are new in this series, it's called the Indicator series, where every week on the Monday evening, we come in over here to introduce to you a specific indicator. And the idea over here is, of course, to give you the knowledge and to let you familiarize with the indicator. And if that say this is something that you're liking it, okay, that fits your style, you prefer this kind of indicator, that's where you'll be able to utilize it for your own trading. Okay, so let's get started. Today's focus on this indicator is going to be the indicator called Ichimoku. Now, not a lot of traders are aware about it or even use it. Okay, simply because this indicator is a one indicator that is like so many components within it. Okay, but I would say Ichimoku is actually one of the most complete indicator where you can just use this itself and develop into a trading strategy. Okay, so today I'm gonna break it down so that you understand what this indicator does, how you utilize it, how you actually have a strategy for it. Okay, but before we start, I just wanted to do a very quick introduction about myself, especially for those of you who perhaps have yet to hear any of my sharing before or have no idea who I am. Okay, just a very quick introduction. My name is Kar Yong. I've been trading. I started my trading journey in 2012. Okay, and since 2015, I've been very actively sharing towards people who likes to trade and of course would like to pick up the skill set of that. And of course, before the whole lockdown period, I've been traveling across Southeast Asia. Okay, namely some of the countries involved like Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, and of course Brunei as well. And what we do is we basically go around to share with people, okay, what actual trading is, right? The real aspect of trading, okay, not some fanciful get rich quick things. Okay, so this is just some photos of me, and I'm someone who believes that if today I'm going to share with you about trading, investing, about the financial market, I need to be someone who also practice it, and of course, very active in the financial market, right? So right now, I'm actually not only trading the FX market, but I'm also kind of like trading and investing into the US market. Okay, so I do have like two portfolios in total, right? One is for the FX currency side, one is for the stock. Okay, so this is my FX 2019 result. Okay, so this is a bit backdated. Okay, but you can see I want to show you here is that not every month you're gonna be like profiting. Okay, some months you're gonna be losses, some months you're gonna be more or less break even. Okay, this is last year 2020 result on the FX side. Okay, same thing. You can see there are months where you lose money as well. Okay, there are months where you just basically break even. Okay, that's a very common and real aspect of trading, which I think is important that you know. Okay, so including today's indicator, today's strategy, I'm going to share with you. Right, it's not going to be 100% guaranteed sure will indicate. There's no such thing in the market. This is my result so far in 2021. Okay, for January and of course February. Today is just the start of the new month of March, right? And this is my result in the stock market in the US. Okay, so last year was about 36.91. This year alone is up 7.31% so far. Okay, so that's a bit about me. I think it's important that I show you some of my results as well, so you know that whatever I'm gonna share with you throughout this whole period, this session here, it comes from my own personal experience on trading. Okay, so it's definitely not something theoretical. Okay, and I think that's where if today you pay attention, you stay focused in this sharing. We do have Q&A session at the end as well. You'll be able to actually benefit from it. Okay, so for those of you who would like to connect with me further outside from this webinar, feel free to connect with me on social media. Just search my full name. Okay, make sure you do that because I think right now with social media, with technology, quite a bit of imposter out there as well, right? Some fake accounts out there are using my profile as well. Okay, just make sure you search the right one. Okay, so that's a very brief introduction about myself. We'll get started with today. Okay, so by the end of this presentation, number one, of course, you discover what is Ichimoku, right? You understand what this indicator does. You'll be able to know what are some of the different methods and, of course, the ways to use Ichimoku to analyze your technical charts. And of course, the last part here is where we're going to utilize it as a trading strategy. Okay, and from there, you'll be able to understand whether Ichimoku fits into your style. Do you like it? And if it is, great, right? Then you'll be having a complete set of strategy that you can use it for your own trading as well. Okay, so let's get started by sharing with you what is Ichimoku. Okay, now Ichimoku itself, okay, is actually a technical indicator, right? It's a strategy, but at the same time, it's also an indicator. Okay, and this indicator here help us to, of course, kind of predict, forecast what the future price momentum is, and we have a component in Ichimoku that's able to tell us the areas of support and resistance as well. Okay, later I'll show you some charts. And this indicator, of course, some background information so that you understand where it come from, where it originated. So this indicator is mainly used on Japanese pairs, okay, but of course with today's technology, many traders also use it on other instruments, right? Not only the Japanese yen pairs. Okay, but of course the name itself gives the clue that this indicator is actually originated from Japan, right? And naturally, that's the reason why this indicator was mainly used in the Japanese pair. Okay, and some fun fact over here. Okay, Ichimoku, if you break it down, okay, the full name is actually called Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. Okay, I think that's how they pronounce it in Japanese. But essentially, what it means is that if you put them together, this phrase or this indicator stands for a glance at a chart in equilibrium. Okay? In other words, it becomes when the person who designed this indicator, who actually created this indicator, was of course a Japanese. They wanted an indicator that they can utilize it to analyze a chart and, of course, be complete. Right, that's where the name comes, and if you translate it, that's where a glance at the chart in equilibrium. That's what it means. Okay, and over here, just a very quick one is that Ichimoku can, of course, not only Ichimoku, right? Any technical indicator can be used in all time frame on any asset, right? As long as today you have a chart, doesn't matter is it on a weekly, daily, 4 hour, 1 hour, 15-minute, 5-minute chart, you'll be able to utilize it. Okay, and the usage of Ichimoku you need to know is that it's best utilized when it's in a trending environment. Okay, so whether market is rising or falling, basically you have a clear sense of direction. It's trending. That's where Ichimoku perform and it becomes effective. Okay, now when it's in a range environment, then you wouldn't want to use Ichimoku to actually trade. Okay, so right now you might have like questions like, okay, so Kar Yong, how do I determine whether it's a trend or is it a range? Okay, the good news here is that Ichimoku indicator itself will let you know whether right now the market is trending or the market is ranging. Okay, so the idea here is if the indicator tell you the market is right now ranging, then don't trade. Okay, that's the idea. And of course, if it's in a very nice trend, whether is it going up or down, then you'll be able to then identify some trades and execute them. Okay, now before I go into the chart to show you what it is, how it looks like, okay, it's important to first break down the 4 components of Ichimoku. Okay, now again, before you get shocked that whoa, there are so many things I need to memorize, so many names. Okay, don't worry. You don't need to kind of memorize them, but I think it's important as a trader to at least know what they are. Okay, and of course, if you're very new to Ichimoku, when you start using it, you need to obviously reference back to the notes, right? And this is where you might want to take a screenshot as we progress in this webinar as well, so that you can reference back to it whenever you need to. Okay, so the first part or first element in the Ichimoku indicator is called the Kijun Sen. Okay, now over there, a bracket maroon line, right? But the color here, of course, it can be changed. Every platform is different. Okay, so let me change my color as well, right? Maroon color, right? But every platform might be slightly different color. So don't get too fixated on the color. Okay, but of course today I put here maroon color because the platform later I'm using, the color of this Kijun Sen is actually in maroon. Okay, so just be aware of that. Now this one here, of course, it can also be called the standard or the baseline. Okay, so in terms of Japanese, we call it the Kijun Sen. In terms of like English, right, we call it the baseline. Okay, so of course there's some formula over here, right? It's basically calculating by averaging the highest price and the lowest price for the past 26 periods. Okay, so why 26 is because previously this was used mainly to trade rice, and it's mainly used, of course, for rice trend in Japan, seasonality period, and things like that. So it's actually using 26 days, right? But of course, with today's technology, we can look at 4-hour chart, intraday chart. Doesn't matter, right? You still are able to apply. Okay, so the first one here is called the Kijun Sen. Okay, it's called the baseline. Okay, the second one is called the Tekken Sen. Okay, again, there are some formulas to it. I'll share with you how to use it. Okay, but right now, just understand there are a few things going on in Ichimoku. Kijun Sen, Tekken Sen. Okay, and then of course you have the Chigo Span. Okay, the Chigo Span. This is also called the lagging line. Okay, and the last one here is we call it the cloud. Okay, but of course in Japanese it's called the Senko Span, right? Usually we don't give it the full name, right? We just call it cloud. Okay, so these are the 4 components within Ichimoku itself. Okay, that's where it gets a little bit complicated. Okay, but anyway, okay, I'll just show you the chart first right now so you understand which are the 4 components we are talking about. Okay, so the cloud is actually the most obvious one. You can see over here, is actually run by 2 lines, right? And whatever is in between, you can see is highlighted. Okay, so that is called the cloud. Okay, of course, this is red here. Okay, that's green. Okay, so that's what we call and refer it to as the cloud. Okay, and then you can see over here, you have the Kijun Sen, you have the Tekken Sen, and you have the Chigo Span. Okay, so you have 3 lines. Okay, 3 lines running here, and then you have like an area, right? A moving kind of like cloud. Okay, so in total, there are 4 components within the Ichimoku, right? And this itself is just called the Ichimoku indicator. Okay, so we'll break it down, each of this, what it means, what it's telling us, how you utilize it, and then we combine them back in together to form a strategy. Okay, and then I'll go over to some of the live charts to show you some analysis process, how we apply all these things, and then before we end off today's webinar, I'm going to open up for Q&A for you to clarify some questions. Okay, so let's first start off by talking about the cloud, okay, because that's like the most obvious and that's the easiest for anyone to go and understand it. Okay, so the cloud is very simple. Basically, you just want to ask yourself, is price trading above it or trading below it? Okay, and this cloud basically just act as if like it's a support and resistance, right? It's a dynamic support and resistance area. Okay, so if price is above it, then of course the cloud becomes your support. If price is below, then the cloud becomes your resistance. Okay, so if you just take a look at this example, okay, you can see price is actually very clearly above the cloud, right? So this cloud here becomes like the dynamic support line, okay, the support area. And idea here is, of course, if price is trading consistently above the cloud, we are obviously in an uptrend, right? Because every time it comes down to a cloud, it gets supported, it bounces back up. Every time it comes down, it bounces back up. Then you know, okay, we are in an uptrend, and the cloud acts as if it is a support, okay? Vice versa, if let's say, price is below the cloud, okay, then what you see is, of course, is a downtrend and the cloud acts as a resistance. Okay, now you can also see that there are like the cloud, the thickness of it, right? There's the thin one. Of course, you have the taker version over here. You can see this is take and then this is thin. Okay, the idea is, of course, the taker. Okay, the wider the cloud is, okay, like here, the stronger that resistance is gonna be, and of course, the thinner it is, the weaker the resistance, and vice versa support as well. Okay, so that's the understanding of it. I think it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy to get. Okay, at least with some picture over here. Okay, just see it as cloud equals dynamic support resistance. Okay, so that's very easy. Now, next up, we're going to look at Kijun Sen. Right, so the name is going to get a bit confusing because if this is the first time and you have no idea what line it is, what color it is, okay, no worries, okay, as I say, you need a little bit of practice and then you get familiar with it, okay, but understand what the Kijun Sen is first, right? So this Kijun Sen basically tells us, okay, it's more like a future price momentum, right? It tells us whether the price is going up or coming down, okay, it's basically giving you a directional projection, okay, or we can say a directional bias. So the idea here is if the price, the market price is like trading higher against this Kijun Sen, that means that you're in an uptrend. Of course, vice versa, if price is below this Kijun Sen, then it means that we're in the downtrend, right? So basically that's what it means. Okay, so this is not really a support and resistance thing. Okay, cloud is the support and resistance. So Kijun Sen is basically telling you right now, do you want to focus on buy or do you want to focus on the sell side? Okay, so that's what it means. Now let's take a look at the chart. Okay, and over here, this line you can see is what we call the Kijun Sen. Okay, so as long as price is trading above it, okay, so you can see along this line here, this whole area price has been trading above the Kijun Sen. We are in an uptrend, okay, which means that during this phase, you want to only be focusing on the buy trade. You do not want to sell, okay? And vice versa, of course, over here, you only want to focus on the sell. You do not want to buy. And of course, over here, you only want to buy. You do not want to sell, okay? Now, if assume that this is where the current price is, then of course, you only want to buy. You do not want to sell because price is above this Kijun Sen, okay? So that's what this line tells us. Really just straightforward, okay? It's a directional bias line, Kijun Sen. Okay, give you another example. You can see over here, previously this was above the Kijun Sen, so you're only focusing on buy trade. But as of now, you can see it broke down and price is trading below that Kijun Sen. Okay, in other words, you do not want to buy anymore. You only want to focus to sell. Okay, as we put it together, you know like, okay, where to look for sell, when to execute the sell. But for now, if you take the whole Ichimoku apart and you're only looking at the Kijun Sen, this is what it tells you, right? The direction you want to focus on. Okay, so you have the cloud, then you add in the Kijun Sen, right? So you have the support resistance, you have the directional bias indicator. Okay, next up here is the Tekken Sen. Okay, Tekken Sen here is basically an indicator to tell you the market trend. Okay, so it's not really just the direction, but this is telling you whether the market is in a trending environment or is it gonna be a ranging environment. Okay, so if you still remember, I mentioned right at the start that Ichimoku is a trend following strategy and indicator. So you only want to use it when it's in a trend environment, right? And this Tekken Sen, okay, this line itself is gonna tell you whether it's ranging now or it's trending, okay, and from there you know whether you want to trade the market. Okay, so the Tekken Sen here is colored mainly in blue, at least for the platform that I'm using. Of course, different platform can be different color. Okay, so first off, you can see again, this is not direction in itself, but as long as it's moving in any of the direction, whether is it up or down, okay, we are in a trending environment. Okay, so all this here you can see that, well, this is coming down, this is coming down, this is coming down, this is going up. We are in a trending environment. Okay, now where is it range? Okay, can you see at least on this chart here, this portion, this blue line, okay, this Tekken Sen has been moving sideways. Okay, so this is basically range environment and you do not want to trade when the market is in the range if you are using the Ichimoku. Okay, so let me show you another chart to give you the example. Okay, now this is a bit more recent. You can see this blue line here is flattening out. Okay, it's going sideways. That means we are in a range. Don't trade using Ichimoku, right? So you can see this is again range, this is again range, don't trade. But when the market or this line here is moving in a certain direction, you know the market is in a trend environment, you'll be able to trade it. Okay, so this indicator basically just tell you whether the market is sideways, is in a range, or is it in a trend. Okay, so Tekken Sen tells you that piece of information. Okay, so if you piece this tree that we walked through together, you have the cloud, okay, you have the directional bias line, Kijun Sen, Okay, and then you have the Tekken Sen, which tells you the market environment. Is it range or is it trend? Okay, and the last one here is basically, we call it the Chigo Span. Okay, and over here, okay, it's also commonly kind of like referred to as the signal line. Okay, and the idea here is that we are using this to kind of trigger our trade, whether to enter, okay, whether to execute trade. That's why we call it the signal line. Okay, so how we use this is basically when this line, when this Chigo Span kind of like crosses the price from like bottom up, okay, that means if from below it crosses up, that's a buy trigger. Okay, and vice versa, if this particular signal line crosses from the top to the bottom of price, that's a sell signal. Okay, so give you an example over here first, right? So you can see this is the green line, right? It's lagging a little bit. Okay, it's meant to be like that, right? So right now the market price is here, but you realize that the Chigo Span is behind, right? It's behind by 26 bars. So it's designed for that. That's the purpose of it. Okay, so the idea is you still look at it, which means while price is here, okay, the indicator is definitely there. You still look at the indicator there, okay? And what happens is you can see right now here, price is, this line is breaking above price. Okay, you can see it has been trading below all these prices, right? All the while it has been below. So right now, this one here is breaking off, right? Let me remove that. You can see it clearer, right? It's breaking up, okay? And that's what we call a buy trigger. Okay, so Chigo Span basically give you the time element. When it crosses bottom up, okay, that becomes a buy. And of course, vice versa, if it crosses below, that's your sell. Okay, so you can see over here, it was above and then it crosses below it. Okay, and of course, over here, you can see from below, it crosses above it, right? And then from there, it starts to trend up. Okay, so that's how you use the Chigo Span. Okay, and why I want to go through all of them individually first, because you want to really understand what each of these minor, smaller indicator within that Ichimoku is telling you. Okay, so when you understand each of them and what is the usage of it, that's where we can actually put them together, okay, and start looking at it from a complete point of view, and then how to develop that into a potential trading strategy. Okay, so over here, I've actually kind of like put that into sequence so that it helps you become, turn this into a potential chat list where you can just refer to this and then go, okay, number one, chat, number two, chat, number three, chat, number four, chat, and then you have a trade that you can trade. Okay, so the first one here, of course, you want to just quickly identify whether the current market is in a trend environment or in a range. Okay, again, because Ichimoku is meant to be trend following. If it's not trending, then no trade, right? So this one here, you can refer to the Tekken Sen. Okay, if the Tekken Sen is going sideways, basically the market is in a range, that's it. Forget about it. Don't trade that particular pair. Okay, if the Tekken Sen is going up or coming down, then you know, okay, we have a range, we have a good trend. We can focus on the potential trade and then we look for it. Okay, so the next one, then we look at the Kijun Sen. Okay, because again, we want to know whether we want to buy or sell. Okay, if the market is in a trend, it can trend up, it can trend down, right? So what you do is you use the Kijun Sen to help you to determine, is the market going up or is the market coming down? Very straightforward. Okay, you pick a direction using Kijun Sen. Okay, next, then you utilize the cloud to help you identify potential areas that you want to keep an eye on, right? Because the cloud here is your support and resistance. So if you want to buy, you want to wait for price to come back a little bit towards the support area, then you look for a buy. Okay, if you want to sell, you want to wait for price to go towards the resistance area, and then that's where you look for a potential trade to sell. Okay, so that's where you utilize the cloud. And the last one here is you wait for the Chigo Span to give you a signal to trigger your trade and then execute it. Okay, so that's where you utilize that Chigo Span. Okay, so I hope you can see, like, when we understand each of this and we combine them, it becomes a complete strategy by itself. Okay, and Ichimoku is actually well known for that. Okay, within one indicator, it gives you all the information you need to turn that into a strategy. Okay, so over here, I give you some walkthrough and then we'll go into the live chart to kind of analyze the market to show you what I mean. Okay, to put that into practical usage. Now, first off, you can see over here on this chart, okay, the blue line here is our Tekken Sen, right? And the first step here is to identify if you're in a range or in a trend. Okay, so if you take a look at this Tekken Sen is now moving sideways. Okay, which means the market is in the range. Don't trade. Okay, basically just no trade, and then you don't need to look at other things really, right? Because if right now the market environment says don't trade, you have nothing to trigger. Okay, so what you do, you go next. Okay, look at another pair. Okay, so another example over here. Okay, this is an example on the dollar CAD. Okay, so you can see over here the blue line. Okay, the Tekken Sen is going up, right? In other words, we are in a trend environment. Okay, and of course, you can see right now this is going up. It's very clear it's an uptrend. Okay, but you can utilize the next indicator as well, which is the Kijun Sen, right? Okay, so the Kijun Sen and price, okay, so price is above the Kijun Sen, so we are having a bullish bias. In other words, very clear, right? The market now is, the indicator is telling you it's a trending environment. You can potentially look for a trade. Next, they tell you the direction you want to focus on, which is bullish, right? Because based on Kijun Sen, price is above it. Okay, and then the next one here, you look for cloud. Okay, so wait for price to pull back towards the support area, right? So you can see this is where your cloud is. Okay, price has broke out of it. Okay, broke above it, so this becomes your support. Okay, so anytime price comes back down, that can act as a support for another bounce to the upside. Okay, so what you can do is you can utilize the cloud as a dynamic support right now. Okay, and the last step, of course, is to wait for price to cross. Okay, the Chigo Span, right, crosses above the price. Okay, of course, right now it has done it, right? So I'll show you some live chart example so that we can practice on it. Okay, but before we go into a live chart, let me just very quickly summarize what we have went through on this PowerPoint slides. Okay, first off, understand that Ichimoku is an indicator for trend trading. So if it's a range environment, you can't really use it to trade. Okay, Ichimoku itself is a complete set of indicator that can use as a strategy because it has 4 elements within it. Okay, and if today you want to utilize Ichimoku to trade, you essentially already have a strategy itself. Okay, and of course there are many multiple ways to utilize it, right? You can actually break those 4 components down and you say that, okay, I do not want the Chigo Span, you can take it away. You can say, I don't want the Kijun Sen, you can take it away. I only want the cloud of the Ichimoku. Okay, and I only want to utilize the cloud as a support and resistance, and that's all. I only want to use that. Okay, you can do it as well. Okay, you can remove the other parts and then just leave the cloud for your own analysis. Okay, so that's the beauty about Ichimoku. Okay, so let's go over to some of the live charts to kind of walk you through, okay, some idea of how you can look at it. Okay, let me okay, so let me just scroll through, like, you know, some of the charts, and then we'll look at it. Okay, maybe I'll look at maybe I'll use 4-hour chart, right, which is a good balance. Okay, 1 hour is a little bit short as well. Okay, now first off, take a look at this. Okay, okay, there are a few things going in. I hope you guys can see clearly. Okay, this is a chart on euro dollar on a 4-hour time frame. Okay, so first off here, you can see that the blue line, okay, is starting to go. Let me change this color too. Okay, the blue line over here, okay, is starting to go sideways, which means that market might start to range a little bit. Okay, so you might want to be aware of it, and of course that means that you might not have a potential trade. But let us just walk through the whole process first, right? Next up, you have this Kijun Sen, right, which is the maroon color. Okay, and price is below it, which means that you only want to focus on the sell. Okay, and you can obviously very clearly see, right, price has already break off the support, now turn resistance. Okay, so the cloud now acts as a resistance. Okay, so the idea here is, of course, you have a direction. Okay, you know that if this is going to continue down, that is a trending environment. You know that price is below Kijun Sen, your direction is to sell. You have the support and resistance cloud forming. Okay, so the idea is if price were to retrace back up towards this cloud, okay, that's where you want to keep an eye on. Of course, you do not want to sell here, right? Okay, because this is no man's land. You want to wait for price to come down come back to nearer to the cloud. That's where you want to look for the potential trade. okay, and you can utilize that Chigo Span, okay, to execute a trade. Of course, right now it has already passed, right, because the signal is somewhere around here, okay, but wait for it pull back. This will pull back also, and then maybe from there it will come back, okay. So let me play around with some and see if we can really identify any opportunities, okay. Okay, I don't usually recommend traders to look at 15 minute, okay, but I want to give you a classic good example that we can really utilize, okay. So take a look at, I'll go back a little bit into the past, right? So if you take a look at this, okay, on the 15-minute scale, okay, all these are the resistance, right? So when price comes up towards this area here, that's where you want to look up for a potential sell, okay, because price has been falling, right? If you go to the higher time frame, that's what you're going to see anyway also, okay. And what you can utilize is, of course, when price comes towards the cloud area, okay, that's where you pay close attention to it, okay, and then that's where you can utilize, if you are someone who looks at pattern, you can look at that, okay. If not, that's where I want to show you the Chigo Span, okay. Wait for it, okay. Let me show you where that trigger happened, okay. Not yet, okay. I need to move back a little bit, okay. I move back too fast. Okay, now can you see at this point here, okay, we were monitoring since here, right? But do you see that only at this moment, this time, the Chigo Span actually broke off, okay? Before that, the Chigo Span was basically just hovering within price, right? It wasn't like breakdown, okay? So there wasn't any entry until now, here, this, okay? This is where the Chigo Span actually broke off. This is your trigger. Okay, so that's how you can utilize that Chigo Span. Okay, so I hope it's clear, because right now I might need to go back a little bit in the historical data to kind of show you where this happened. Okay, so what happened next? This is how it goes, right? So it was a very nice environment. You can see it kind of like shorted here, and as of now, you have some good profit. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, if you are looking at using that Chigo Span. Okay, again, usually it's on the 4 hour, right? That's the time frame I utilize. But again, right now, we might not have a good example to really talk about that. Okay, this is on pound dollar. Okay, so you can see how price is actually breaking down the cloud, right? Okay, and then what you see over here, the blue line is moving down. We are in a trend environment. Okay, price is below the Kijun Sen, so your focus is on the sell. Okay, of course, then what you can do right now is that you can also see your Chigo Span has already crossed it. So there are two ways you can execute a trade, right? Again, these are where you need to take some time to develop your strategy as well. Okay, you can see while price is breaking off this cloud, so you know that, okay, the cloud is a support and resistance. Right now, two indicators is telling me that we are looking to sell. Price has broke off the cloud. Okay, so Chigo Span also broke down from price above to top, top to bottom. Okay, so the question now is, can you use this as a signal to trade it to the downside? Okay, the answer is obviously yes, right? Because number one, price broke support, okay, which means that likely it can continue falling. We have the blue line, okay, Tekken Sen tell us that market is trending, the momentum is there. We have Kijun Sen tell us that the direction is down. Okay, we have Chigo Span has already breaking down from previous year. Okay, so that means that the trigger is there. Okay, so you can put all this together, right? And of course, some of you might decide eventually, okay, I only want to look at cloud, I want to look at that, I want to look at Kijun Sen, for example. Okay, you have that flexibility to do it. Okay, but right now I'm putting everything so that you can see how it's being applied. Okay, yeah. So some, like over here as well. Okay, so this one here, you want to be a little bit patient. Okay, maybe you want to wait for maybe a pullback, because from the break we have already come down a little bit, right? Maybe wait for a while for price to pull back towards the cloud, act as a resistance, and then trade it down again. Okay, why down? Because you can see price is below this Kijun Sen, right? The direction is very, very clear. Okay, so you can see Ichimoku Indicator give you a very quick way to identify like the direction you want to focus on. Okay, and when market is doing this, there's no trade. Okay, it's basically everything lumping together and everything is flat. Okay, so you don't trade using Ichimoku when that's happening. Okay, you only trade when the market is trending. Okay, take a look at some of the Japanese pair. Okay, so look at this here. Okay, this here, the blue line, which is the Tekken Sen, is telling you, okay, market is trending. Yes, it's coming down. Okay, next one here you can see is below the Kijun Sen, so your direction bias is down. Okay, but at the same time, price is at support. Okay, so you wouldn't want to sell at support. Okay, what you can do then, maybe you want to wait for price to break off the cloud. Okay, you can trade it from there, or you wait for the pullback. Then from there you trade it down. Okay, so that's how you utilize it, right? You wouldn't want to sell just because this two indicator is telling you. You want to also put in the cloud to know that, okay, we are at a support. Why do you sell at support? You don't want to do that. Wait for price to break off the support and then you can sell. Okay, so that's the idea of it, right? Now, CAD. Okay, so you can see this one here, this CAD Japanese yen. Okay, the blue line here seems like it's a little bit towards like flattening out. Okay, you might go into a range. Just be cautious on that. The Kijun Sen, you can see this maroon color line. Okay, price is just above or trading in between it. Okay, which means the direction might not be very clear as of now. But you can also see the cloud has always been supporting price. Okay, and just recently it has bounced off. Okay, so maybe you want to be cautious on that. You want to wait for a clearer sign. Okay, for Kijun Sen and see how price develop from there. But sometimes when you see situation like that where you have not unclear indication, okay, don't trade. Okay, just skip it. This one here is CHFJPY. Okay, so same thing, right? You can see the candle is just closing below this right now. Okay, so it's still a little bit early. Okay, so sometimes when you see something like this, just stay away because the direction itself is not so clear, right? Last day it was above, then right now it's back down here. Okay, so you need to be patient. Okay, let me apply this on precious metal as well. Okay, you can apply that in any chart. You can see gold is very clear right now. Okay, it's below this cloud. Okay, it's below the Kijun Sen. Your direction is down. Okay, of course you don't want to sell here, right? You want to wait for maybe a pullback to the cloud. Wait for your Chigo Span to maybe go back up and then crosses the price again for another trigger. Okay, that's something you can be patient with. Okay, silver. Okay, silver is sideways, right? So once you look at something like this, there's no trade, right? It's basically just stay away. Okay, oil. Okay, can also be applied. You can see, right, the support resistance very clear. The cloud. Okay, the only thing right now, of course, price is kind of like crossing the Kijun Sen, right? So the direction might not be very, very clear. Okay, but the idea here is if price were to break down the support, okay, sorry, the cloud, okay, what you can then look for is a potential sell. Okay, because when that happens, your Chigo Span might cross price below. That's a trigger somewhere maybe here. Okay, and then your price will then be already below your Kijun Sen. Okay, so that can happen. Okay, so it's a little bit kind of like forward looking, a bit of pre-planning. Okay, for you to kind of like identify what potentially can happen. Okay, where your trade will likely come in. Okay, so I hope that's clear in terms of how you utilize Ichimoku, right? It at the start, okay, if you are first time really hearing this, it might seem a bit complicated, okay, because of so many things going in, right? Usually indicators, there's only one thing, but Ichimoku is really a lot. Okay, but at the same time, once you are familiar with it, you realize that it's really complete. Okay, you don't really need any other indicator if you're using Ichimoku. Okay, one indicator itself can give you a complete set of strategy. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Okay, of course, right now I don't actively use the Ichimoku. Okay, I've studied that, I've practiced it a little bit in the past. Okay, it's not my style. Okay, so again, you need to eventually identify which indicator fits you. Okay, there are over hundreds of indicators out there. You do not want to add every indicator into your library, into your chart. Okay, and the objective, the purpose of all this indicator series webinar that we are doing is not so that you can eventually add all the indicator in. Okay, but the idea here is to walk you through, give you the introduction to each of this so that you get a better understanding of it and see if it fits into your style, if that's something that aligns with you. Okay, if it is, go deeper into it, study it, practice it, apply it, and from there, I'm pretty sure it will help you in your trading journey. Okay, so that's really all I have to share on the Ichimoku part of the indicator. Okay, maybe for the next couple of minutes, I'll open up to questions and see if you guys have anything you'd like to clarify. Okay, you can utilize the chat or even the question segment or GoToWebinar over here to kind of ask your questions. I'll be able to monitor them and answer your questions accordingly. Okay, so I'll give you some time to type out your questions, right? If you have any questions, you can utilize the time right now to type it in, and then I'll look at those questions. Any questions? All good? Okay, if no question, then I hope it's clear. Okay, I think next week we are talking about another indicator. Let me take a look and search it up for you. Okay, so every week we're going to introduce to you guys one specific indicator. Let me do a very quick check what we're going to talk about next week. Give me a moment here, I'm checking on that. Okay, next week we are talking about pivot points, okay, which is one of the another common indicators that I use quite frequently as well. Okay, more for like intraday trading, right? Short-term trading, I use the pivot points. Okay, so if you're keen to understand that, that is kind of like, I would say more designed for short-term trading intraday within the day. Okay, Ichimoku here, of course, is more for trending environment, right? So each indicator has its pros and cons, right? Has its advantage and disadvantage. Okay, so if you're keen on that, you'd like to find out a little bit more about pivot points, do join us next Monday. Okay, so same timing here. We start at 9. Okay, it's the same process where we introduce you to the indicator, how to use it to analyze, to try to put in a strategy so that you can apply it and practice it. Okay, so that's all for me over here today. Okay, so we'll end off the webinar. Okay, and just like to wish you guys all the best for this week's trading. If you guys are trading, okay, if you're still learning, be patient. Okay, there's no need for you to rush into the market. Take your time. Most important part here is to always protect your risk, manage your risk. Okay, and as long as you do that, you'll be in safe hands. Right, so I'll see you guys next Monday when we talk about pivot points. Okay, have a great night, and I'll see you guys soon again. Bye bye.